Welcome to Space News, and today we have a special story because the moon is getting visitors. And now we're not just leaving our traces around Earth's orbit with our space debris, but we've also included the moon. We're expanding. On August 5th, 2026, something will happen that at first glance seems like an ordinary spaceflight announcement, but a Falcon rocket stage from SpaceX, traveling at about 8,700 kilometers per hour, will crash into the surface of the moon. The impact itself will occur roughly at the level of the Einstein crater. And yeah, will most likely create a crater about 10 to 20 meters in diameter. But the real story doesn't start on the moon. It actually begins here on Earth. Because ever since the launch of the first satellite, the Sputnik satellite in 1957, which also marked the beginning of the space age, humanity has step by step, well, whether you can really call it conquering is debatable, but in any case, we've step by step created more and more trash in our surroundings, which since 1957 has extended beyond Earth itself. What once began with a single tiny satellite has developed into a massive technological infrastructure. Today, there are over 10,000 active Starlink satellites in orbit alone. In total, more than 12,000 have already been launched, which means that about 2,000 have re-entered, burned up in our atmosphere, and left behind metal aerosols in the upper layers of the atmosphere. But it's not just our communication, our freedom of movement, or even the integrity of our living environment that's changing. Everything is being transformed and increasingly subjected to digital control, and it encompasses the entire planet. While people look up at the night sky and see stars, thousands of artificial objects are now orbiting the Earth. Satellites, rocket stages, fragments, and technical debris are forming an increasingly dense network around our planet. And what's especially remarkable is a development that receives hardly any public attention. More and more of these satellites are returning to Earth as re-entries. In 2025 alone, over 600 Starlink satellites were removed from orbit or burned up in the atmosphere. In 2026, over 200 additional re-entries were already registered in just the first 6 months. The number of so-called re-entries is therefore rising significantly, and each of these re-entries means that several hundred kilograms to several tons of material enter the upper atmosphere and disperse there, returning to Earth only very, very, very slowly. Most satellites do completely burn up, but scientists are increasingly discussing what long-term effects the resulting metal oxides and nanoparticles could have on the upper atmosphere. So once again, the damage is done first before anyone even thinks about how that damage might affect us. And just a few decades ago, natural meteors were the dominant source of extraterrestrial material in the atmosphere. But today, humans themselves are beginning to make a measurable contribution to this cycle. The upcoming impact on the moon is therefore much more than just a technical detail. It marks a turning point because for the first time in history, we are not only moving within the boundaries of our planet, but are actively shaping the environment of both Earth and Moon. The rocket stage that will hit the moon was originally part of a mission that brought the Blue Ghost moonlander into space. After completing its mission, it was left behind, an abandoned object in the Earth-Moon system, and now its journey will end on August 5th with an artificial impact. NASA researchers, of course, hope that amateur astronomers will be able to observe the dust cloud created by the impact. Estimates suggest it could eject up to 800,000 pounds of lunar material. If the lighting conditions are favorable, you can see this cloud rise visibly above the edge of the moon, and the location is already set. But the scientific benefit is only one side of the story. The other side is what kind of future we want to create in our space, or rather, what we have already created. For billions of years, the moon has been an archive of cosmic history. Every crater tells us about asteroids, comets, and massive impacts from ages long past. And now a new chapter is beginning because new craters are no longer formed solely by natural processes. Some will soon be created by our own technologies. At the same time, the USA, China, and numerous private companies are planning to establish permanent lunar stations on the moon. The moon is evolving from a distant celestial body into a place of human activity. And with that, we're faced with the fundamental question: will we repeat the mistakes we've made on Earth? Or will we manage this time to treat the new environment more responsibly? Which, yes, is actually a question meant to keep a positive aspect in the matter. Because basically, with the impact and the uncontrolled launches that originate from Earth, it's already clear that people aren't really thinking about it. Well, the Falcon upper stage shows that humanity has crossed a new threshold, one we can't necessarily be proud of. We are no longer just observers of the cosmos. We are now beginning to leave traces in our space ourselves, and on an ever increasing scale. And maybe, one day, future generations will look at the moon and, among the billions of ancient craters, also discover those created by our own civilization. In this sense, the impact on August 5th is not just a piece of space news, but essentially a time capsule for future generations. Thank you very much for your attention. Harmonious movements, and August 5th is a big day for observation. And yes, until then, I wish you all the best. Yours, Hendrik.